Hello, everybody, and welcome to Virtual Bourbon. My name is Steve Akley. We have a fun event tonight. We have one of our flagship whiskey events. So these are the favorite events that we do. We always do it with 4 distilleries and get to try 4 different whiskeys and hear the backstory of the people and the distillery itself. So always fun to do these. We are going to go through and talk to all 4 individually, but I always like to kick it off by saying hello to each of our presenters. So as I mentioned, Joe Henry is going to be a little bit late, so we won't say hello to him. He's scheduled to go second here. So, but we will, of course, say hello when he arrives. But for right now, I'd just like to start out by introducing Mr. Bill Wittenberg from Blue Wing Rye here in St. Louis. So, hey, Bill, how you doing, man?
Doing all right, Steve. How are you?
Pleasure I'm doing good. Yeah, doing good. So Bill and I, we connected after I saw an article about the things that he's got going on. So he's revived a family brand, which is kind of a cool thing. So we'll get into all that, tell the story of the whiskey and all the things you got going on. We'll do that in just a little bit. Okay, Bill?
Sounds great.
All right, talk to you in just a few minutes. All right, next up, of course, we were chatting just a little bit here before we got started. Mr. Wally Dant from Luxco. Hey, Wally, how you doing, buddy?
Good, Steve. Hey, thanks for having us here tonight.
Absolutely. And of course, when we're talking family history, you've got a great family history and of course, big family now. I know that, you've kind of gathered a lot of individuals from the family. You got things going on and kind of a really cool thing that you've got going on there and pretty exciting for you. It's got to be, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's always nice to be able to talk with and have family involved. And, that's what we're trying to do. And I'm sure, Bill, you're experiencing probably the same thing there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, get a little bit of that stuff for sure. So Wally, we'll talk to you in just a little bit. Look forward to that. And last but not least, also a good friend of mine. This guy I've known for a long time. He's started the Missouri Whiskey Society and stuff like that. So he used to work at Gamblin Whiskey House. So that's where I first met him. And now he works for Luxco here in St. Louis at the corporate headquarters type of thing. So Mr. Dustin Paris. Hey, Dustin, how you doing, buddy?
You're wonderful, Steve. Thanks for having me tonight.
Absolutely. So Dustin and I see him at events and, we supported each other through the years. He's come on the podcast and stuff like that. So good guy for sure. And, doing some really cool things here in St. Louis in the world of whiskey. So I always appreciate anybody who's uplifting what we do here in St. Louis. I think that's a cool thing. So
thank you.
Look forward to learning more about what you got going on at Luxco in just a little bit. Okay.
You bet.
All right, with that, we're going to turn it back over and talk to Mr. Bill Wittenberg here from St. Louis, Missouri. If Joe comes on, Justine will notify me. We'll say a quick hello to him too. I don't like, going in cold to anybody. So we'll stop what we're doing just real quick and say hello to him. So, but with that, I'd like to talk to Bill about Blue Wing Rye. So Bill, tell us a little bit before we get to tasting this thing, which we'll do in just a little bit here. Tell us a little bit about, the family history and how you came about to learn about, the family history and decide, I'd like to bring this thing back.
Well, 7 or 8 years ago, I just saw the return of rye on the horizon, and I had picked up some family memorabilia over the years that had information about a distillery that my great-great-grandfather started back in the 1880s. And the connection with the family history that I was able to polish off with, access to the internet and some, dumb luck and coincidences and things that, we came across along the way. For example, an unused whiskey label from over 100 years ago that was the inspiration for the label that we're using today on the spirit. Just kept me coming back, trying to find a way that in my spare time I could possibly do this. And I'm sure Wally would say, how could you do this in your spare time? It's so time consuming and it takes years and years of effort and investment. And, he'd be absolutely right if he said that. I found my way into the back door, connecting with a cousin who has a distillery here in St. Louis, Square One Brewery and Distillery, and he makes several spirits of his own there. And I partnered with him, and we've came up with a version of a rye whiskey that we felt would be unique in the marketplace. And we started putting it in barrels back in 2017. And what we have rolling out today is aged 3+ years. It has a unique grain bill. It's a rye, but it's a smoky rye, and it's one of the few smoky ryes in the country. And there seems to be a growing interest in smoky spirits. And I just had always liked, a smoky single malt Scotch, and so it seemed like a natural. I always loved rye as well. Or I acquired a love of the taste of rye over the last several years, and it just seemed to me to put the two together. Let's go with a smoky rye, and the grain bill is 60% regular rye, 15% caramelized rye, and then 25% Cottonwood smoked barley malt. And it's probably the only Cottonwood smoked barley malt in the world. It comes from a malting company in Colorado, a little town called Alamosa. And let's just say it seems to go together real nicely. And people will say, hey, it's smoky, it's creamy, and it's spicy. And so it hits on all the food groups there. So
it hits it all. All right. A little bit more about the history of the company. Was it a fatality of prohibition, or did it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was one of the largest distilleries in the Midwest, according to a pre-prohibition spirits aficionado here in the St. Louis area. I mean, St. Louis is known very much for its brewing history, but pre-prohibition, St. Louis also was home to many distillers.
Yep.
And just,
including
Blue
Jack
Wing
Daniels for a while.
Jack Daniels
was headquartered here. Yeah,
right.
Which is now an IKEA. If you want to go visit the distillery, it's an IKEA, so you can go and shop.
Right. But it for 10 years, Jack Daniels made their home here because Tennessee went dry.
Pre-prohibition, national prohibition.
Right.
Tennessee
So at one time, Blue Wing was going head to head against Jack Daniels, which I always find to be.
They're a big player then. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Did the family talk about this a lot? Was it something that you talked about in history, or was it something that you kind of uncovered yourself? And
let's just say that, it ended just overnight, and nobody wrote you a check and said, thanks, good luck, with the rest of your life. It was just, you're now doing something illegal and you better shut it down. Good luck. And so, great grandpa took what he had and put it in the stock market, and then 1929 hit, and that all went out the window.
Yeah.
So my aunt describes it as a riches to rags story. And the depression was tough on the family and all that, but we've bounced back and we're in the insurance business now, and it's been that's been a great career. But there's just the interest in rye, the interest in small batch, the family history associated with the logo and the name. It just seemed like to me this was an idea worth pursuing. And while I was putting 4 kids, through school, we didn't take it as seriously as we should. But over the last 5 years, we've been putting the pedal to the metal, and we're not. I still describe it, we're not micro. We're nano. Okay, we're like the world's smallest whiskey company. We've sold about 600 bottles, and most of that's been in the last 18 months.
Right.
And the reception's been great. It's, you got the family history behind it, and the resurgence of rye and craft, spirits. I don't need to tell you guys, you appreciate that more than anybody.
Yeah.
So
do you happen to have a bottle with you by chance?
I wish I did. I'm traveling. I'm in Florida. Okay. I'm kind of, I was like, darn. I wish
Justine, do you have a bottle there by chance? I'll have Justine grab a bottle. I'd like for you to see it, because the branding it has you've retained that pre-prohibition look to it with your current branding. We'll have Justine grab one of the bottles that we had for the event and
Oh, that
show
was
it.
that was such a nice find. My nephew located this unused Blue Wing label on the internet. I mean, it's like finding a needle in a field of haystacks, you know. I mean, it's like, and my brother, who's his profession is he's a commercial artist, he was able to take that riff and we used it as the you know, as the basis of the brand's identity.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one thing to have great whiskey, but you know, it's gotta attract your attention to get it off the shelf.
Yeah.
And, or even if it's bad whiskey, it's a kind of label that looks good behind your bar. Okay. So well, either way, it works.
Either way, it works. Yeah, Justine, show up. But if you don't mind, talk a little bit too. I know you're not big into it, but that because most people watch it where it's just the big screen, so you won't come up unless you're talking.
It's cool bottle, cool label. Got a cute duck on it.
Yeah.
You want to back it up a little bit. She was spinning it too much to get the full picture. But it looks like, there you go.
That's the kind of old school, you know, whiskey bottles that you see. You know, I like to collect some old stuff, you know, pre-prohibition, because the branding was just so cool back then. I mean, you just don't see that sort of craftsman artistry in a lot of the designs today. So I love, you know, just buying empty bottles and stuff like that, and I got a nice little collection of those, so it's kind of a cool thing. No,
it's that really helped propel my motivation. Was it's like, oh, we found the identity of the brand. It's like, let's give it, you know, something worthy of what it looks like.
Right.
And I'm very happy with what we've got.
And getting it out there today, is it just you? Are you knocking on the doors at the liquor stores and stuff like that?
I mean, right now I'm still in the insurance business full time, and I'm doing this part time. My goal, my plan is over the next 5 years is to fade out of the insurance business and do distilling full time. And but right now it's just me and my son, and as well as my partners at Square One who are making the whiskey for us.
Right. All right. Well, let's get this.
Also self-distributing. So I drive around to the stores, check out the inventory, send a lot of emails around, you know, how we doing, you know, just dropped off another couple of cases.
That is a nice thing that we have here in Missouri. You can do that. So that's definitely.
No, it is. It really is. It's
do everywhere. So
but I mean, to get to this point, as I'm sure, you know, others who are, you know, building a business know, I mean, the paperwork, the expenses, and then, you know, you got to get it out on the shelf. Then, you know, it's like, then you're on the field, and now you got to get it to the goal line or whatever. But it's been a great experience, lots of starts and stops over the years. But I'm ready to, like I said, increase production exponentially and take this to the next level.
So you look, obviously right now it's St. Louis only kind of, and it's select stores. Longer term, as you transition out of insurance and into doing this full time, are you looking at, you know, maybe getting distribution in, you know, surrounding states and stuff like that, or what would be the longer term goals?
Yeah, I'd like to get it into Chicago and New Orleans. Those would be my first stops along the way.
Okay.
But you know, just take it from there. But right now, I mean, the St. Louis market to me would just, you know, I mean, that's just, you know, I got a lot of growth potential there still.
Yeah.
And the whole local and the identity, you know, with the history, is a good track to run on for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, you've got a great market here to get started. And the more you can get out there and talk about that history, I think the more people will be interested. So let's give this thing a taste. And we like to share nosing notes and tasting notes. Anybody who hasn't done one of these before with us, if you don't mind pulling up the chat, and feel free as you start doing this, put that out there in the chat, and I'll read it on your behalf. And of course, we will give you guys all an opportunity to talk to all of our distillers at the end, where you can open up your mics and that type of thing. So first nosing notes coming in here. This sounds pretty darn good, Bill. Caramelized pineapple upside down cake. That doesn't sound too bad. Yeah. So then you got cherry candy, butter, honey, toast, raisin, and smoke. All right, Ed. That's pretty good. It's definitely buttery on the nose, buttery and sweet.
No, it is.
Yeah. And
And,
sweet. A
I
little smoke
get-
too. I do get a little smoke on the nose. Yeah.
Like I said, it's 25%, smoked malt,
Okay.
and didn't want it to be an overpowering, I've heard people say it smells like you're, roasting smoking a brisket.
Yeah.
More like a smoker smoke as opposed to a peaty smoke.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd sample it myself, but I didn't get a sample.
No,
I
we
got the
never
other
said
three.
we don't send you your own. We figure you've got that.
I mean,
So-
darn it, I'm
Yeah.
traveling. I didn't bring any. Like, oh well. Anyway,
it happens. It happens. You got the other ones you get to try though. The stuff's flowing in.
Yeah.
I love when it's like this. This is a good buttered raisin toast, smoked honey, pineapples, oven roasted pineapple, a little bit of canned ham. There you go. Sticky toffee pudding, caramelized beer wort. All right, Lenny. it's getting
I
technical.
haven't had that lately.
Yeah. I haven't tried any of that either, but yeah. Bill says I like it, which we don't allow Bill to open up his microphone anymore. So, because on one of these live events, he once said, it's okay. It might be good for somebody. It's just okay. So that's it. I banned him. He can no longer come on a hot mic anymore. So he's just he'd send it in via chat, but he likes it. So that's good. That's his highest rating, by the way. If he says he likes it, that's gold. You might want to start using that in your marketing. So, all right. I haven't even tried it yet. So anybody who hasn't, let's give a cheers here on the first one. And let's try this. A lot of notes coming in. Let's see what we got on the taste. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. It's sweet. Almost cakey, but it's got that little bit of smoke to it. Not overwhelming. It's good. It's flavorful.
Yeah.
Warms up nicely too. 90 proof, warms up higher than that. So that's a good thing. Got a good finish to it.
Say don't put too much ice on it.
Mhm.
If you put too much ice on it, it locks up the flavors.
Yeah.
A cube, fine, but I wouldn't do more than that. In terms of you can. It really get limits the taste if you put too much ice in there.
Right.
So, but of course, it's great in a Manhattan. It's great in an old fashioned. Great
Oh
in a
yeah.
whiskey sour.
I could see it hold up through all those. Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it adds a nice dimension to a Manhattan that you won't get in even a quality bourbon. Just the spice at the end is something unique, of course, to the rye.
Yeah.
And it's sweet, but it's not overwhelmingly sweet.
Yeah, you're getting again lots of good stuff here. Honey finish, nice mouthfeel. Yes, I agree with that. I'd put it into a margarita. Says Whiskey Rick. He's our guy in the Florida Keys, so you gotta take that with a grain of salt. Smoky, sweet, and peppery. Sweet and lots of honey with some pepper in the finish. Dave and Adina, who make a lot of cocktails and stuff like that, they're saying this would even work at a tiki cocktail. Nice oily coating, sweet transitions of spice, smoke throughout, but not overwhelming, and smoky cocoa. Good stuff, my friend.
Thank
Bill,
you.
I think you got a winner here, man. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing and keep on
Selling everything we're making, so we're going to be making more. So,
Mhm.
and I appreciate very much the recognition and being part of your show.
Absolutely. So thank you. Please stick around. At the end, we open it up where anybody can ask questions and stuff like that. And of course, you get to sit back now and watch our other distillers talk about their products. And you do have those other samples. So
I do have those.
that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yes.
All right. Next up, we are going to jump down to you, Wally. Okay. I don't see Joe here yet. I haven't got notice that he's with us. So we'll jump down to Mr. Wally Dant with Log Still. Hey, Wally, how's it going, man?
All right, Steve, how are you?
Good, good. So, like Bill, you had a successful career outside of this. This wasn't something that you grew up, and I mean, you grew up with, having it in the family. You knew about it. I'm sure it was talked about a lot. Family reunions, people are sharing stories. You might have even known people that were in the business. But tell us a little bit about how you decide to get this idea of, man, I'd like to open up my own distillery and kind of celebrate, everything that's been happening in our lives.
Yeah. So we grew up all around it, right? My dad was born on the property that we have here, the old distillery property. My grandfather worked there. My great grandfather owned it for, a number of years, and then across the street was another Dant distillery, and so we grew up certainly around all of that from a historical perspective, and then. My career, my dad worked for UPS. And so we bled brown and moved around when I was growing up, as they said, in UPS land. And so when I began my career, it actually began at Brown Forman. I actually started right out of my MBA with Brown Forman, the owners of Jack Daniel, and then Early Times at the time, and Old Forester. And so started with them, eventually left and found my way ultimately into healthcare, and had a nice successful career in the healthcare world. But along the way, became a big fan of wine and spirits. Not just simply because of my background, but because I enjoyed it, and then owned a retail store, back in 2006 in Tennessee, with a couple friends of ours, and that kind of got me back into the wine and spirits world. And from there in Tennessee, it's a different state for retailers, and in particular for distributors, and you find a lot of the power rests in the distributor. So I thought, well, hell, why don't I do that on the side, and started a distribution company that was really a beer company that had a high gravity license that could sell wine and spirits. And I knew a little bit about that, and I said, well, why don't we start that little group with your high gravity beers? And so that got us into the wine and spirits distribution company side in 2012, where eventually we grew a little wine and spirits distribution company in Tennessee, and in growing the spirits portfolio, really ran across a number of folks that were in the supplier end of things on the spirit side, and ultimately talking about my background and our family history, and kind of all of the distillers that the Dants have throughout their 6 generations before me, and they they looked at me and they said, well, you got a great story out there with your family history. Why don't you do this on the supplier end of things? And that the guy that really put that seed in my brain more than anybody else outside of the family, really talking about it over the years, was Kaveh Zamanian at Rabbit Hole, right? We represented Kaveh down in Tennessee, and came to know him and what he was doing and how he was doing it, and all of the pain in the rear sort of stuff that Bill talked about before getting started. And so ultimately, with the success of the healthcare stuff, I just said, why not? Why not do something fun at the end of your career that you can engage family in, that you can engage community in, and so that's what we did. We came back, was able to buy the old distillery site, where my dad grew up, and begin anew. And so that's how it all got started. At the end of the day, it was kind of divine intervention that, one, we were able to get it, and that we were able to get all of the property that was here, the 350 acres that we have here on campus, and then really kind of dream big about it, right? And that's what we've done. We've said, hey, we want to be a distillery, and we want to be more. We want to make sure that when our people come here that visit us, that they have an experience, that we create a memory for them, a good memory for them, that they want to come back again. And so that's kind of what we've done here, outside of the normal distilling and selling of spirits, which, you know, is certainly important. We want to create memories here at the campus and at Log Still. And so that's why you see us have a 2,000 seat amphitheater, right? And that's why
Right.
you see us have our bed and breakfasts, or our wedding and event center that we have here, and you know, a train depot with a working train. And so, you know, we're trying to dream a little bit bigger here, and you know, be a part of what the craft distillers trail is here from the Bourbon Trail perspective here in Kentucky, and you know, create our own little niche and hopefully lift the boat for everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's you know, it's a destination that you're creating there. So it's, you know, a place that you go and, yeah, you stay for a couple of days. You don't come there, just go to the tasting room. You know, you're there, you can experience a concert, and you've got restaurant, and like I said, bed and breakfast. So yeah, it's a cool place to go for sure. So you got some cool things happening there. So I like
Yeah,
that.
thanks.
Yeah. So, you know, when was the first time you thought about opening the distillery though? Was it, you know, you've got the distributor, you know, was it a conversation during that, or was it something, was it even before that, something that you kind of always thought you wanted to do? Or when does it come into play that, man, I'd like to open a distillery?
Yeah, you know, Steve, I would, you know, you grow up around it, from a family perspective. You know,
Uh-huh.
you talk to your aunts and uncles and grandparents and all of those guys that were in the business, right? You know, my grandfather was, you know, retired out of Shenley in 1974, and you ask the question of them, why did the Dants all get out of the bourbon business, right? And you know, I'm sure some of it was for money. I'm not going to say it wasn't. I guess our you know, one of our great uncle George's, who ran the Dant company when they sold it to United back in the day. You know, and he, quote unquote, was the richest man in Marion County, which is where he lived at the time. And you know, and so you got to say good for those guys for doing it all. But you know, what you've left is this whole legacy that follows behind you, a whole family that goes, well, why did we get out of this again? And you know, our name is sitting on some bottles out there, whether it's, you know, whether it was the, you know, the original JW Dant brand that's now owned by Heaven Hill, or you know, other brands that the Dants created. And so, you know, we'd all scratch our head at family reunions and say, wouldn't it be pretty cool if we had, you know, these brands back, and that we could do, you know, we could do something with it. And so I think we all discussed it. It was just, you know, some of the push that came from being in the distribution side of the business, and really, you know, I gotta credit Cave for, you know, planting the seed in my brain that said, hey, you know, you should do this yourself. And you've got a family history that is pretty unique in the bourbon world anyway. And so, you know, that combination plus, you know, success on the other side just led us to, and me and my family to take the plunge.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Like in the world of sports, sometimes we like to do analysis, you know, where you're guessing how a player maybe that got injured, career cut short, and what if they would have, you know, been healthy their whole career. And you know, it's curious about the Dants. Had they stayed in the business, what would the Dant family, you know, have been today that you would have, you know, grown up in, with them owning distilleries and stuff like that? It's I would have to guess that they'd be a force. I mean, you know, there was a big company anyway, and you know, had they stayed in, I think they would, you know, continue to be players to this day. So it's
Well,
kind
you
of cool
know,
that you bring it back.
well, I mean, you know, when you hear, you know, I'm sure you ran across Limestone Branch and those guys that
Yeah,
are at Limestone Branch, Steve and Paul
sure.
Beam,
Steve
right?
Beam. Yeah, we're good
And
friends. Yeah.
you know, they're part of their family is part of my family tree. And you know, when they picked up the Yellowstone brand and working with Luxco, we've got Dustin on the line, right?
Yep.
You know, and look what collectively they've done with that brand to resurrect
Yeah.
something that was an old Dant brand, and look what they've done with it today. And those are the cool stories that you can look back on and say, you can do all the what ifs. God
Right.
has reason for everything, I believe, and so ultimately, he put us in this place to be here today and do what we're doing, and hopefully generations that come behind me, will continue to do the same thing.
Yeah. As you decide to name the distillery, you go with the Log Still Distillery, which of course is a tribute to your ancestors running on the log, as they say. So distilling on a log, and I think that's a cool aspect to it too. And at the distillery, you pay homage to it there as well, right?
Yeah, we do. He was one of the few that began, what they called stilling on the log, and had success at it. So I think the Wathen family and the Dant family,
Yeah.
were kind of well known for stilling on the log initially, anyway, before they were able to afford copper, and they produced a consistent product, which I think was probably equally
Challenging.
important
Yeah.
back in that day. It was
Right.
producing a consistent product, right?
Yeah.
And so when you look at that frontier ingenuity of those families that began stilling on a log, you got to really kind of give them credit for doing what they did and really being able to grow their respective businesses.
Yeah. Well, let's taste some whiskey. Don't forget, for everyone on today's call, we jumped to the third one. So Joe is here now, so we'll be introducing Joe next. But so don't forget on your placemat, it's the third one, not the second one. So if you could grab that. And Wally, what are we expecting? What do we got here with Monk's Road? Tell us a little bit about this whiskey.
Yeah, so you have a 6-year-old bourbon whiskey, and so for all of those that want to know, this is sourced, right? So we're only a 3-year-old company, much like Bill talked about, doing your own stuff. We've actually got contract distilling with a group out of Danville, Kentucky, which some of you may know.
You may be able to figure that one out if you're
but
really
really,
right.
really good people. But they're doing our distillate right now, and so all of that is around our 4-year-old product. Some of that will reach market here in September. But in the meantime, we went out and said, hey, let's pay homage to the past Dant distillers and try to come out with a high rye bourbon, which is what our family has been known for, at 100 proof. And while we can't call it bottled and bond, it was all from one season, and really kind of show an expression that we think is pretty closely akin to what you're going to find being made here at our distillery. And so that's what we did. So this is for all practical purposes, a lot of our barrels are turning 7 in May. And so this one, while it's 6 years old, is close to 7 years old. So you're really going to find a lot of great characteristics that are really coming out of the barrels on this one. I think you said this was barrel number 43. And we found a pretty consistent product throughout. These are all single barrel expressions, so every one of them, depending on the barrel, are going to be a little bit different, just because of the barrel itself. But we're finding it pretty consistent, which means to me that really kind of pulled from the same place in the rick house. We've been really fortunate with it. We've had it for about 3 years, been holding it for about 3 years. So the 75-21-4 is the mash bill on this, for those that want to know. All cooked at the same time, so all the grains cooked at the same time. So really what that means is, while you'll taste that rye spice characteristic that comes through, you get a little softening of the rye because of the higher temperature that it's cooked at with the corn. And so I think you get a nice palate pleaser, is what I call it. It is 100 proof. So, you begin to, a lot of times, depending on this, I get a lot of the vanilla that comes through, some little brown sugar that I usually smell associated with this. See, I'm smelling barrel number 4. So sometimes it's different.
A little bit different. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sometimes people get a little coconut smell, a little banana, depending on on the
Banana, yeah.
nose.
We've seen that. You've got a lot, again, a lot going on here. Great bubble gum. We got Werther's. I saw banana crumb pie with vanilla wafer crust. So yeah, sweet molasses, rock candy, honeydew, cantaloupe, melon, toasted marshmallow, dusted with cinnamon. The toasted icing on a cherry Pop Tart, says Lenny from Deerhammer. Vanilla, peanut skins, caramel and jelly. I mean, sweet cherry fruit punch, light toasted rye, spices, caramel. Man, good stuff.
Yeah, you'll get this, and this is a Kentucky. It's made in Kentucky, so it's made in Bardstown. But it's really turned out. I think a lot of people think that it's turned out to be pretty special.
Yeah,
we're pretty pleased with how this is really kind of aged in barrel, and it's a great first expression for us to be able to provide to everybody.
Nice. Let's give it a taste. Wow. Mr. Bill says, wow, love it. Man, that has exceeded as I like it. I think he's developed a new scale tonight for you here, Wally. So that's something new. Who thought he was could teach an old dog a new trick there, but there you go. Mr. Bill has a new scale. You've just set a new standard for him. A sweet banana, mild rye, very easy drinker. Yeah. It's got a little rye spice to it, but it's nice. Sweet though. Very sweet.
Yeah. You get a lot of sweetness in this. We've really found that sweetness to be really consistent throughout. It's a great expression. That's it's something that we've really been pleased with.
Heck yeah, I love it. It's got kind of fruit, maybe cherry. I get that on the palate. I'm definitely getting that.
Fruit. Yep.
Deliciously complex. Yes. Yeah. That's something. Yeah, and it warms up nicely. Great finish. Great mouthfeel. Finish is awesome.
Yeah, you get that little Kentucky hug, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people are surprised at the proof on this. While it's 100 proof, a lot of folks just feel it's not drinking like 100. But I tell you what, we tested it a number of different times because we thought the same thing.
Right.
Because we're like,
let's keep testing it. Right. Yeah, this is it. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's 100 proof.
Yeah. Yeah, Wally, we call these that drink so darn easy, porch sippers, and you drink it until you fall off the porch. Then you're done. You call it a night when you do that. So we have one of our associates used to do that quite a bit.
Yep.
Falling there, Mr. Bill said falling off porch bourbon. Yeah, that's what we call that one. So that's good stuff there, my friend. That is incredibly easy drinker. Nice, really, really good. Really good stuff.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll keep you on till the end. If you don't mind, stick around with us. We'll open it up for questions at the end, and you can sit back now and enjoy the rest of the whiskeys that we got here. So you can taste those as well. Okay. Hopefully we got your samples, right? We did. I think we did. We should have. Maybe not. We tried. They were mailed. But all right. With that, I want to bring in Mr. Joe Henry from J. Henry in Dane, Wisconsin. Joe, how you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for covering for me, Wally. Really appreciate you stepping up there.
It's a friendly industry. People can, that's the sort of help you can get. Hey, you need me to move up in the rotation? I can do that for you. No problem.
Yeah, I know we're a couple states north, but I've got nothing but hospitality from the Kentucky Bourbon squad. So
yeah,
appreciate it, man.
It's amazing. That's across the board, no matter what you're talking. It's a industry where people are definitely willing to help others. So it's a cool thing.
Well, I met Joe and his family early on when we were in the distribution business, and they hadn't quite decided on Tennessee at the time. And so yeah, I've followed those guys for a long time. Big fans, Joe. So you guys are doing great work up there.
Awesome. That's honoring to hear.
Very cool. Joe, tell us a little bit about how you decided to get into the business. What sparks you to be like, I'd really like to open a distillery and get involved here?
Well, you got to talk to my dad for that one, because
right.
I think I was probably 13 when he.
So you weren't making the decisions. Yeah, you were. Yeah.
No, well,
I mean, I'm sure you had to work though from the beginning, right?
Yeah, my family actually farms. We're a seed corn farming family located just north of Madison, Wisconsin.
Uh-huh.
So I grew up working on the farm pretty much, from before I could drive for sure. I think I learned how to drive a tractor before a car,
Right.
which is just kind of how it goes. But we farm hybrid seed corn, which is a little unique in the industry. So we essentially grow hybrids with specific traits for other farmers to grow, and then they put it in the ground and usually raise it for animal feed. So not to get too deep into it, but it kind of ties into our story of how we got bourbon. Essentially, when we're growing hybrids, you're taking, the easiest way to explain it is growing favorable traits from hybrid A and favorable traits from hybrid B. So let's say there's a farmer in South Dakota that wants a frost resistant plant and a new herbicide resistant plant. So we find two different strains with those favorable traits and grow them in a way that it's like one male row for every 4 female rows. So guys, if you're having any trouble with the ladies, come hang out in the cornfield. You'll always be surrounded by 4 females. It's my dad joke for the evening. So we grow them kind of like this, where you got 2 females, a male, and then 2 more females. And so you'll notice when you drive down a seed corn field, because you'll have awkward changes in the difference between those different varietals of corn. So the end goal is to create a hybrid of these 2 strains at 99+%.
Okay.
Because if it doesn't have all those traits, then the farmer's not really going to want it. So the main way we do this without,
Cross.
too
Oh,
deeply,
Right.
is about July, we'll actually go through and cut the tassels off of every female plant and go through by hand and pull them off so that those aren't cross-pollinating themselves. Because corn is what's called like a hermaphroditus plant. It has both male and female parts on the same stalk, essentially. So you can get cross-pollination. This is also why people grow seed corn, so that you don't have incest diseases in your crop, stuff like that. So I know I'm getting a little too deep into
It's
this.
Jurassic Park. It finds a way. It finds a way.
Yeah. So essentially, after we detassel, then the male row pollinates the female row, and we harvest the resulting AB cross. So a lot of you are kind of wondering, why the hell is this related to bourbon? Like, we came here to drink and have a good time. So
you'd be
we can-
surprised. This is
Yeah.
a very geeky group. More so than just random people off the street.
Yeah, sounds
These
good. That's why I figured
these are people want to know everything. So
I dig
they're
a
on the
little
edge of the
deeper
seats
into
right
the
now.
family
Yeah.
history for you.
Yeah.
So essentially, we've been doing that. I'm a 3rd generation seed corn farmer. So my grandfather bought the property that we're currently on in 1946,
Okay.
and he did that for about 30 years. My dad has been doing it for about 45 years now, and I've been stepping into the family business for the last like 5 or 6 years after I graduated college. But we all know what you need really to make bourbon. It's 51 or more % corn. So as a seed corn farmer his entire life, he went down to Louisville, I think on an anniversary trip with my mom, and really just toured a bunch of distilleries. Went to all the big names that we know and love. And the common theme that you see is number 2 yellow dent corn getting shipped in on rail cars from mostly around Kentucky, but kind of all over the United States.
Sure. Yeah.
And my dad kind of had an epiphany. It's not a very entertaining drive going through Indiana and Southern Illinois back to Wisconsin. It's all flatlands and cornfields. So that epiphany was, we've been growing really high quality grains for, over 60 and now close to 75 years as a family business. What do distillers want? They want really high quality grains, because you can't have a good output if you start with something that's not premium quality. Any distiller you talk to will say that you got to start with good inputs. And so that's sort of how the entire idea started. But we wanted to really kind of capture the idea of terroir, like that French wine term that's so popular and prevalent in the wine industry.
Yep.
And what we're starting to really see in a cool way across American whiskey in general, we've got all these different products coming out from all over the United States. And everybody's kind of deciding on their own flavor profile. And it's kind of starting to become a little like Scotland, where you have all these different regions, and those regions have sort of their own flavor profile and terroir. And so that's really what we wanted to accomplish. So we wanted to grow high quality grains that were kind of local and native to South Central Wisconsin. I know corn isn't native to anywhere in America, but we can talk about that at a different time. And how corn got all the way up to Wisconsin from South America. But yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. So we wanted to grow a really high level grains local to our state, and something that really kind of hit home with our region. And so we landed on this really unique red heirloom corn. Got a little bottle to show everybody. I wasn't able to send these with shipping prices going through the roof these days. Corn gets pretty expensive when you're shipping it by weight. So
Right.
I think we're all better satisfied with the bourbon samples.
Yes.
But this specific hybrid it's called W335A. It's not a very sexy name, but we are talking about seed corn here, everybody. So that's also why we got into the bourbon industry, because it's a little more fun.
Right.
So we honed in on this W335A because it was a hybrid developed by the University of Wisconsin-Madison that's really only about 20 minutes south of us. That's an ag research university. So they've done research on different crops, different plants. They've got decades and decades of research. And from the mid 30s until about the mid 70s, W335A, this hybrid that was created in a similar way that I explained it. See, it's kind of all coming full circle, right? They created this hybrid, and then local farmers would actually grow it and feed it to their cattle, and mostly dairymen, because we are still in Wisconsin. It's a big milk state. So my grandfather raised this hybrid as seed for the local farmers kind of in our area. My dad remembered the unique red color of it growing up, thought it would be kind of just a cool, novel idea to start making whiskey out of it, because nobody else is using this stuff. It's been extinct since GMOs became popular in the 1970s. And we were fortunate enough to have the university, because it's a research university, they have what's called a seed vault, or a seed library, which is a temperature and humidity controlled room with a bunch of files, essentially, of active grains that they've saved over the course of the last 30, 40 plus years. So W335A, about a 1,200 seed sample, was living in that seed vault from the mid 70s until about 2005, 2006, when my parents were kind of coming back from this trip and had this idea. So luckily,
Joe, did they know that it was going to be there and available, or was it like, man, I sure hope that is there, because
they
that's our
just kind of
history.
landed on it.
Okay,
and
that's cool.
We talked to the university and kind of told them their story. Fortunately, my mom was kind of a part-time professor in the dairy research facility at the time. She was able to pull some strings and get us in touch with the right folks. So they loaned us those 1,200 kernels that had been in hibernation for the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
We took them. 1,200 kernels is really not a lot. Like, it's probably what fits in this bottle. So when we're saying, hey, we want to grow like a couple hundred acres of this corn and make bourbon out of it, they were like, okay, have fun. And they handed us a manila envelope, and what do you do with that?
Right.
So we actually planted it by hand that first year with sort of an old school hand planter.
Yeah.
really 1,200 kernels doesn't yield a lot. So it took us 3 full growing cycles to go from 1,200 kernels in 2006 to about 2009. We finally had enough. We had raised the propagation of that from 1,200 kernels into a little over 100 acres. So 2009 was when we first started distilling, using that heirloom red corn, heirloom wheat that we also grow, heirloom rye that we also grow, and the malted barley we get from Breeze, which is a company up in Chilton, Wisconsin. So we grow all those grains. And what's really cool is now that we've been working with W335A for a little bit, we've started to hybridize that with some more progressive red heirloom grains, knowing what we know now about corn and distilling, to create our own proprietary J. Henry red heirloom corn. So we're going to start putting that in the ground, a couple different variations of it, actually this growing season. So within another couple years, we'll have sort of our own proprietary red heirloom corn.
Perfect.
That's been
Yeah.
hybridized by us, that the entire goal is to create the best bourbon possible.
Nice. Question came in when you had those first seeds. Obviously, that's like gold. I mean, you've got the 1,200 seeds, and no real backup plan here. So, Terry asked, did you put any of it in a greenhouse or anything like that, or was it all out in the field?
No.
And are you sitting around with guns, making sure critters and
Yeah.
varmints aren't coming all night?
We actually
gotta
had
protect
to
that, right?
we had to sign a bunch of documentation. Like the university only loaned us that 1,200 kernels.
Yeah.
So we had to replace those 1,200 kernels at the end of our first growing season.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I wasn't out there with a BB gun, rabbits or anything like that. I mean, I do that, but not.
I would have been out there.
Not
yeah.
every night. Yeah.
Would have been scared. Yeah.
Like I said, I think at this time, and I was like 14 or 15. So
Perfect age for that. Yeah.
yeah,
A lot of energy. You can be up late at night.
ready to sit up all night.
15,
Yeah.
16-year-olds have a different schedule than old people like
Exactly.
me. So yeah. let's taste this.
I thought it was those raccoons you had to watch out for.
Oh, well, yeah, the
Yeah.
raccoons. They're bad news. All right, let's nose this one.
Yeah, so we sent everybody sample of our J. Henry small batch bourbon. So this is our flagship whiskey. This is a 5+ year-old blend, primarily 5, but sometimes we'll throw a little bit in there of older stock just to sort of round it off.
Mhm.
The mash bill is a 4-grain mash bill. So 60% of that red heirloom corn, 14 wheat, 14 rye, and 12% malted barley. The main reason for that 4-grain decision was when we first started getting into this, and my parents kind of started researching this a little bit, they found that there was kind of 2 polarizing schools of thought, especially down in Kentucky. And that's, the sweet wheat school and the spicy rye school of bourbon. Wally kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. And we are in Wisconsin, we didn't want to pick any sides. We just kind of wanted everybody to drink together and get along. So we found a comfortable middle ground for both schools to enjoy. So hopefully you'll get kind of a little bit of aspects of that sweeter wheat on the nose, a little bit of creaminess, some of that fruit. I'm seeing a lot of good notes from people come in.
Yeah, cookie dough, cherry raisin, toast.
And then a little bit of that rye spice kind of is also there to balance it all out. So
peanut butter
and
cookies.
that's really we wanted to hit all ends of the spectrum, from your very gentle sweet wheat drinkers to this. I want something that's a rye bomb and extremely spicy. We wanted something that everybody can enjoy together.
Yeah. Again, we've got 3 winners here for sure so far. Again, because a lot of notes coming in. That's when you can tell when people really they're connecting with what you got here. Cotton candy, honey roasted peanuts,
Hey,
fresh linen, even. Yeah. Dark.
it's great that I'm even
punch.
in. It's sort of it's very humbling to even be included in the same conversation as some of these some of these folks that we have on. So I do really appreciate that, everybody.
Absolutely. You're right there. M&M peanut mix, and it's very tasty pairing. There you go. Yeah. There's a suggested pairing you may want to use from Whiskey Rick.
We usually hand out chocolates and stuff in our tasting room. So
Well, let's give this thing a taste. Let's see what we got here. Let's do it. Yeah, this is also very good, kind of peanut brittle, I would say, on the taste, but again, there's a sweetness here, very pleasant, kind of a little spice, little light spice on your tongue, kind of sticks with you a little bit. Really good. Mr. Bill's saying circus peanuts. Yeah, that's a good thing. Light sweet tea notes, peanut and slowly numbing spice. Yeah, that's what I got too. That kind of just sticks with you a little bit. Baked apples and cinnamon. White chocolate covered cherries, peanut butter and jelly. Heck yeah.
It all sounds great. I might have
Delicious.
somebody come up and help me pick barrels out next time.
Don't be careful. They'll all show up. Yeah. Yeah. There'll be a lineup outside the building tomorrow. You'll be like, what's going on? And,
All right. I'll preface that and say you have to pull your own barrel samples and you have to do it in the middle of January.
The Ewalds can handle it. They're almost there already. So yeah, they're up pretty far north there. 40 minutes away. So yeah, they're
I will say there's nothing colder than a rick house in Wisconsin in the middle of January.
I can imagine. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure. So very cool. French burnt peanut candy. Fosnot's on his way too. Yeah, he's got nothing better going on. Homemade lemon pie. What goes with Mr. Bill, I guess, he's doing his own pairing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Our tasting room manager is a really good baker, and so she makes pies and confectionaries, and we just have stuff sitting around all the time.
Not bad. You're
Between
making
that and
life
all the
worse for you with
whiskey I
this group.
consume,
Again, this is stuff that's going to get them up there. Yeah, they're
Yeah. Hey,
pie and
you're all
whiskey.
welcome.
Yeah. Well, Joe, thank you so much for being part of this, and please stick around. We'll have some
definitely.
questions for you at the end. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Next up, we want to talk from Luxco, Mr. Dustin Paris. Hey, Dustin, how you doing, man?
Wonderful, Steve. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. You've got you're in St. Louis. That's where you live. You call home. I'm in St. Louis. This is my home. And we're talking about a company that was born here in St. Louis. So, very, very cool thing. And we've got a St. Louis original here, don't we?
That's absolutely true. The David Nicholson 1843 was actually created in St. Louis by a guy named David Nicholson in the
Imagine
year of 1843.
How
It's a
about
very original title. So we got that going.
he was a grocer, and he sold spirits there, and then he also started thinking, well, if I could sell the stuff, it's even more profitable if I can make it. So he started making it. So very early on to be making a wheated bourbon. So before even the big brand that everybody knows, before them. But again, you're talking about bourbon history gets a little murky. So that's part of the fun of being a bourbon fan, right? Everything's a little murky out there, right? Those early
So, for
years.
sure. And I mean, those other guys, they were doing it all legally. There was very, very
Right.
little legal.
Right.
About,
David Nicholson's not doing it
Nicholson.
legally, so there's not paperwork
No.
associated with it that can verify that.
Exactly right.
He's just selling stuff out of the grocery. That's the grocery store I would have gone to, by the way. Hey, come
Wow.
here, check out this section here. Say the code word, and we'll sell you some stuff.
Step in
We
the
got some-
back here.
Yeah.
Mark Twain was a big fan of that grocery store. He was in there a lot, and he would trade. David Nicholson, he would give him cigars in exchange for whiskey. So that was
that's a cool story. Yeah.
not a bad gig if you're the man, the myth. So
Yeah, I did not know that one. So I like that. So, David Nicholson, as we have people from all over the country on tonight's event, I don't think that they have any idea how big David Nicholson was here in St. Louis, and, continues to be certainly a thing here in St. Louis. I always like to give this story of myself. Again, my parents weren't big drinkers, but they were holiday and party drinkers. So, it was the summertime, they would make bourbon slushes. If it was around the holidays, they'd make bourbon eggnog. But again, they never had the measurements. If you go back and look in my mom's handwritten notes for these cocktails that she made, it wouldn't say bourbon. It would say 2 ounces of David Nicholson 1843 in it. So that's how big that brand was here in St. Louis. And so tell us a little bit about that history and what it's meant to be here, a St. Louis brand.
It really was, here in the Gateway City, it was just synonymous with good bourbon. And it all started, David Nicholson was originally born in Kentucky, and then he moved to St. Louis to seek his fortune, which he found owning grocery stores. And being a good Kentuckian, he eventually found owning grocery stores to be quite boring. So he started to develop this illegal habit of distilling in the back and selling out of the front, right? His original grocery store, you said you'd go there. I mean, it's right on 6th and Market. The building still stands. That was his flagship store. But he being, having that good Kentucky blood, set up that distillery in the back, and he got to work. Now, everybody, you needed corn, no problem. You needed malted barley, he had that. But everybody was just using rye in their stills at the time. Now, any rye that you were going to get was coming from up north.
Right.
The Pennsylvania boys would load up their buckboard mule and they'd bring it down south to help out the Kentucky distillers. So anything that was left on that buckboard mule after you'd make a straight line from Pennsylvania to Kentucky was typically anything those Kentucky boys weren't dumb enough to buy. All right. And so then you go, well, where am I going to unload this? So you figure, well, I'll stop by St. Louis, see if I can find a rube before I head back to Pennsylvania. Well, David Nicholson was born at night, but he wasn't about, he didn't fall off the dry truck. So he was very disgruntled with the level of rye that he was able to get. And he really felt like it was interfering with his whiskey. And so one day he was just looking out the window in 1843 in St. Louis, Missouri, at these vast fields of wheat that we have here in the bread bowl of America. And he said, you know what, I'm done dealing with Rye Guy McGee, and I'm just going to start putting some of this in my still, and we're going to see what happens next. And that was pure laziness, and innovation was the inspiration for him to start using something different in his distillery. And that's really where this mash bill came from. And it turned out to be really, really good. And I'm glad that, other famous distillers eventually caught wind of what was going on, and people really got it into mass production. Because, I get that Wisconsin doesn't like to pick sides, and, I sell rye bourbon and I sell wheated bourbon, but 9 times out of 10, I'm drinking wheated bourbon. So,
yeah. So tell us a little bit about the brand history. Obviously, David Nicholson, it's not necessarily a brand, it's just the bourbon, that he's selling, this wheated bourbon. The brand itself, who founded that? Was it started by David Sherman, or is it a brand that he bought from the distillery? Again, the founder of what is now Luxco.
So David Sherman was the founder of the Sherman Corporation, and his son-in-law name was Paul Lux. So when Paul Lux took over the David Sherman Corporation, he changed the name to Luxco. That was in the that was in the 80s. And then in about 90s, we started purchasing. At that time, we were a private label brand. Okay. We were the guys putting in juice for Schnooks and other people that wanted their own private labels. So we were just sourcing whiskey, putting it in bottles, and letting somebody else enjoy it. What we started doing then was buying our own mash bills and our own products. Everclear was the very first thing that we bought. So, you're welcome for that. And
it got us all through college.
It's good for you now too, So.
Yeah.
But David Nicholson was actually one of the first whiskey mash bills that we purchased. And we purchased it we knew what it was, where it had come from. At the time, United Distillers had ownership of it. And so in 1991, we purchased this label and mash bill from United Distillers.
Nice.
And put it in production. We had contract partners for a very, very long time. We opened our own distillery 4 years ago, and literally about 30 days ago, we started cracking open our very own barrels that we've produced at Luxco Distillers. So all of our whiskeys are now under one roof, completely under our control by another wonderful St. Louis and John Rempe, who's our master
Yes,
distiller.
Mastered. So that's very cool. Very cool. All right, let's talk a little bit about this. What should we expect as we're getting ready to taste this whiskey?
Well, this is a 4-year-old bourbon. This
Okay.
is a 100 proof bourbon. We pull all of our David Nicholson off of the top floors of our rick house.
Okay.
We like that it gets a nice little dusty earthiness to it up there in that Kentucky heat. And so that's where we pull that. It's got that long sweet wheat. All right, that's exactly what it's going to do. It's 20% wheat in the mash bill, 68% corn, 12% malted barley. And that long wheat finish is really going to carry through. Again, in St. Louis, when it's 112 degrees outside, you can turn on a Cardinals game on the radio. I like to drink this, a couple fingers with some really aggressive club soda, the biggest lemon peel I can cut, and just stick it in there. I can drink 8 of those listening to a ball game. My wife's seen me do it. So
she's hoping for not extra innings at that point.
Exactly right.
Let's get them stopped at 8. So yeah, okay.
But no, it's got a wonderfully a nice nose, and the flavor really does carry through. I really do like whenever a whiskey can deliver one thing. Oh, come on. Can deliver one thing to the nose and then something different to the palate. But this one's tried and true. It doesn't really do too many tricks. It says, hey, I'm going to be a nice, a sweet bourbon for you. And then that's exactly what it delivers. So
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what are you guys getting on the nose as you're starting to smell this one. I mean, there's definitely, like I said, I'm getting a little light grape. It's again sweet as we talked about. Smoky candy corn, nice. I do like candy corn. That's a divisive one as well, candy corn, but I like candy corn. I'm a candy corn fan. You get that on a lot of these. So
somebody's got to be. They keep making it, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Honey and vanilla, absolutely. Yeah, that's certainly there. All right, last one of the night. Let's give this thing a taste. Cheers, gang. On number 4 here.
Thank you all for being here. And honestly, as the only person not carrying the word founder behind in his title, it truly has been wonderful standing up here and drinking whiskey with some of these greats. So Steve Akley, only you can make something like that happen. So
thank you, sir. Yeah. This is a fun series for sure. This is the first thing that we kicked off when the pandemic started. We didn't know what we were going to do. I mean, we're losing sponsors and all kinds of stuff on our podcast, and we start this up, and it's just kind of had a life of its own. We do them every 2 months, and then we do 2 events so we can kind of efficient in our shipping. We send out, our packets together, all of our samples and stuff like that. And it's just worked out really well. And hearing the stories and introducing us, and it is getting to be more and more the ability to order things online, which is nice. So many people have been introduced to different whiskeys, and now you're able to pick up a lot of these, which is very cool. So I've definitely enjoyed that. This one is so easy, drinker. It's really good. Chewy taffy, honey and biscuits. Yeah, honey and vanilla. We're getting here. Again, a nice little finish. Again, for a wheat, there's a little spiciness there on top of the sweet, which is very nice. Kettle corn with vanilla, cinnamon, and light maple syrup. Yeah, I kind of get that light cinnamon. I mean, there's a little something there which you wouldn't expect at all. Being a wheater. So that's cool.
Honey and biscuits is my favorite one so far. That exactly just nails it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a Southern living, big breakfast in a glass.
Absolutely. After drinking 8 of these, Mr. Bill would be go Cats. So that's better than go Cubs. Whew, there's not enough David Nicholson produced to say go Cubs, right? I mean, come on. Come on, man.
Not in this city.
Yeah. No, we're definitely not into that. So that's good. I'm glad I got a couple fellow St. Louisans on this one. So yeah, that's a good thing. What else? Any other notes?
The one thing that I really do want to say about, Luxro, and I mean, we're really excited to be doing what we're doing. I think it's great that we have a St. Louisan running that ship. And I mean, we're going to work right now to make sure that even though everybody keeps drinking whiskey faster and faster, we're trying to make it as fast as everybody drinks it. So we're trying to go from making about 400 barrels of whiskey a year. And we don't just make David Nicholson there. We make the Rebel, the Ezra, a wheat whiskey and a rye whiskey, rye bourbon. But we're going from about 400 barrels a year to about 700 barrels a year. Just trying to keep up with demand. So stay thirsty, guys. We're taking care of you.
Stay thirsty. More is on the way. So absolutely. All right. With that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to the audience. We got about 15 minutes. We do keep this to 90 minutes. We are big into respecting the time of the individuals. With a big meeting like this, you could, and I've been on these, not ones that I've run, but I've been on other people's, and everybody gets talking. They all want to ask questions, and you can get 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, and it's like too much. So we got about 15 minutes. If anybody wants to open up or put it in chat, if you've got a question, now's the time. You can ask the entire group of distillers, or you can ask someone individually. Feel free to jump in if you've got a question.
I actually wanted to ask my fellow St. Louisan at Blue Wing there. You're working with your cousins at Square One, and I just find that, it's one thing to grow up in the Dant family, and so you can't walk around the corner without having to have a conversation about whiskey distillation. But I find it fascinating that for you guys, it seemed to be like a quieter topic, and yet both you and your cousin are now operating distilleries. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's cool stuff. I don't know where
So-
Bill's at.
Is Bill on?
I don't know. Bill might have. Maybe Bill left. He's in Florida. He's having fun. He's having fun.
I was in
Yeah.
Florida after you
Signal's going in and out.
Oh,
I apologize for
signals.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, they don't make internet used to,
Oh,
So, but anyway, it is interesting that we were both coming from different paths and then just came together here. I mean, it's too long to explain the connection here, but it literally is a connection of two sides of the family, both seeking to achieve the same goal. Coincidentally, just really great to experience,
yeah.
and it's just one of those things. It's fortuitous, you just, a lot of these things, and I'm sure, Dave would say the same thing. You can't explain some of this stuff. You just follow your passion, you follow your dreams, and you never know where exactly you're going to end up. But if you keep pushing, you'll achieve success.
Yeah. All right. What else? What else you guys want to ask? Again, you can ask all the panelists or one individual. Whiskey Rick, you got a question?
I do. For Joe in Wisconsin, he talks about being in that cold rick house, and I've heard different things. I'm curious if you take any of your barrels and stored them down further south in Kentucky or southern, and what differences you get with that sustained sub-zero on your whiskey.
Oh, Joe, you're on mute.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
There's been quite a lot of studies over the last, 30, 40 years. A lot of them have come out of Kentucky. I mean, Independent Stave Company has done a lot of maturation studies over this. But I mean, kind of what happens is under 40 degrees, these barrels really kind of go into a state of dormancy. And it's sort of interesting. A lot of people have different theories on what really happens, but this is sort of what I kind of alluded to earlier, where it's kind of an exciting time to be part of the American whiskey revolution, if you will. Because when everything was made in Kentucky, for the last 100 years or so, they don't really experience sub-zero temperatures for longer than, I don't know, when's the longest time you guys have had snow on the ground in Kentucky? So nobody really knows what that what that does, I mean, it does kind of go into a dormant state where if I were to pull a sample from that barrel in the dead of winter, like in January, versus pulling a sample of that same barrel in August, it's just a lot more active of a flavor profile. So we're a very young company. We've only been around for about 12 years now. We've only had product on the market for 5 or 6. So I'm probably not the best person to ask. We just know that dormancy stage happens. What we're thinking is it locks flavor into the barrel, and then when it warms out, it kind of squeezes it back into solution maybe. But that's a really good question, and I have no idea how it would act differently in maybe a Kentucky warehouse. The other thing that we have that's really unique is we don't have a lot of Kentucky style rick houses in the state of Wisconsin. One of my friends, Dancing Goat, just built the first one in our state that actually has, I think, 18 barrels up. Our barrels right now only go 6 high, and I'm pretty sure that's what everybody else does in most of the Midwest. So you're also missing out on some of those really high upper level variances that you get from like a Kentucky style rickhouse where you've got, 20,000 barrels in the same building. And there's huge variation from the first floor to the 5th or 6th floor.
Yeah.
So this is something that we're working on. And as we get bigger, I'm trying to do a lot more of that stuff. But it's a really hard question to ask just because people have only really been distilling again in Wisconsin for probably the last 10 years.
Yeah. He just asked it so his follow-up could be, do you want to store one in the Florida Keys?
If that's if you got
at his
space,
house, that's what it all leads into.
I know our I
Don't
know
do
our
that, by the way.
average
You'll
loss over
have
5 years,
Angel
though.
Share will be higher than you think.
Yeah, I don't know
Just get
about the
richer.
fill level. It's probably not going to make it that far if it sits in your house.
Right. Other questions for the group here.
I got to say though, Joe's barrel house gets the temperature swings. We've been in there and it was hotter than holy hell in there and humid in Wisconsin, July. So he does get the temperature cycling and the swings and storm fronts moving through Wisconsin in the spring with a lot of barometric pressure changes. So Wisconsin's not that, moderate in the weather. So I think they are seeing a lot of the weather influence.
Yeah, it's an extremely aggressive climate. And then I'll stop from like the dead of winter until the hottest in summer. We can have some years about 100 to 150 degree temperature swings, which is pretty crazy. And that's why I'm saying to not really dodge your question, but nobody has experimented on barrel influence in that way.
Or empirical data needed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm working on it and I'll get back to you in about 30, 40 years, I think.
All right. What other questions do we have?
Actually, I have 2 questions now, but that was a question. If Joe was doing any experimental, either smaller barrels or full barrels, but in that climate, if there's any experimental stuff. Oh, I see.
We just built like a heated addition to one of our buildings with in-floor heat. So we're gonna store some barrels in that area, and that'll be kind of a difference because those won't experience drastic temperature swings.
Okay.
So that'll stay between 50 and 75 degrees for their maturity versus, the 150 degrees from -30 to 100 that we experience in a normal year. We're not doing small barrels, but I am doing a lot of experiments with like finishing stuff. So I don't want to take up too much time. I can talk to you more about that, Brad.
Yeah, I'll Google it. I'll look it up.
Or just send me an email. We're good.
Okay. My other question is, I think I know the answer with Bill. Your distribution is what you sell locally, likely if it's the You said 600 bottles in 18 months. I know Dave Nicholson sells nationally, but does J. Henry and Log still have distribution outside of their region?
Wally, why don't you go first? Tell us where can you find your products at?
Right now, you can find us in Kentucky and Tennessee. We'll be in
Okay.
Indiana the latter part of this year, and then probably in some control states. So you'll see us hit Ohio and Mississippi in 22. Following years, probably Illinois and Missouri. I think
Yes,
we'll be in
yes,
Missouri.
that's good. Good to hear. Yes, Indiana made Brad and Sally happy. That's where they're from. So they're coming soon. How about you, Joe? Where's your stuff available at? What sort of states are you in?
So we're primarily in Wisconsin, but we also sell in Minnesota and Illinois,
Okay.
with plans if not in 23, then for sure by 24, probably to Indiana. We might stay away from Iowa because it's a control state. I don't know if any of you live there, but then
They do.
ironically, Florida's looking
Avery and
pretty
Blaine.
good for us as well, whiskey rig, simply because there's so many Wisconsin snowbirds that hate the winters up here and move down to Florida. So
So,
Sounds good.
Joe, who does distribution for you in Illinois? Because we are not getting that in Southern Illinois, only in Northern Illinois.
Yeah, that happens a lot, believe it or not. And there's like 3 million of us around in this metro area here. So please make sure they don't forget Southern Illinois.
And Joe, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, I grew up in the middle of Nebraska. I did a lot of cold detasseling when I was 14 and 15, and that's some 60 years ago. So I'm just saying, if you need somebody to come over to Wisconsin to detassel some horn for you, I'll do that in exchange for some bourbon. That's
yeah, if any of you want to come up and walk fields for 13 hours a day.
Oh, he could do it. He could do it.
Yeah, I'll give you a bottle of bourbon for that for sure.
all right.
Middle of July. Yeah, I got you.
Paul's
well,
78 is what he likes to tell us. So,
Times
yeah.
I got kicked off the crew because I was too damn small, but other than that, I made it a couple of times. So good.
Okay. You got a bottle of bourbon waiting for you in Wisconsin. Make it up
Okay.
this August. Make it that way. Other questions?
I had a question for Bill. The Cottonwood smoked malt, it has such an impactful flavor for only being, 20-25%. Have you tried it by itself, or is it just kind of overwhelming if you try and do like a single malt with it?
Well, that's a great idea. And maybe we'll roll that out in the near future because, it is that unique and it's, and it's the only place you can get it is from this place in Colorado. I mean, it's just not on anybody's front burner, Cottonwood smoked barley malt, and yet it should be. I mean, it's very distinctive.
Absolutely.
So
Got time for a couple more. Yeah, we got a couple time for a couple more.
So Bill, you say you're a nano distillery. What is your capacity? Can you produce there if you had to?
Well, I got to get into the line with the rest of the products that he's making. So, right now, I'm hoping to make, 300 gallons a year. That's my goal for this year. So next year, 600.
Okay.
That's our target for 2022.
What made you go for that smoked flavor?
I've always liked a smoky single malt Scotch. And those vary. Some of them are, taste like ashes, but you get used to it. But some of them are, have a lot of flavors in there.
Yeah, I know Lenny's on this, and he's listening right now, and I've questioned him on this a couple of times.
Lenny owns Deerhammer Distiller in Buena Vista, Colorado.
Yes. And I like a little smoke. and a little peat. And so this is definitely something that's a little different, and it's fantastic.
It's good stuff.
Oh, thank
Affordable too. Bill, what's the retail price on a bottle? of your-
Between $33 and $35 a
You
bottle.
can't beat that. You can't beat that. That's amazing. So
I'd like to charge $10 more, but I want more people to buy it right now. So,
And we're in St. Louis, so where can I get this?
the wine
Wine and Cheese
Place.
Place has got it. That's where I bought it. I bought it at Wine and Cheese.
and then you get, there's a Friar Tuck's. I
Okay.
got it in 3 Friar Tuck's.
Wine and Cheese sells
have
online
a place
too, so
called-
you may be able to buy that. If
Yeah, you
online.
can, you're right. You should be able to order.
So,
them
so we like to
online.
talk about shipping and stuff
There's
like
a
that.
little
Wineandcheeseplace.com.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
Right. That's the principal distributor. They took me on first, and they sell nothing but quality stuff there, and I'm proud to be on their shelf.
nice.
But, there's another place called Parker's Table in Richmond Heights, and the beer sauce shops in Sunset Hills and
Yeah.
St. Peter's also carry it.
Beer
But be
sauce,
sure and
okay.
call them. They're not real good about calling me. Grillo's in Lake St. Louis, they have it on the shelf there. That's chop and barrel. It's specialty meat and cigars and whiskeys.
Nice.
So
One more question. We got time for one more.
I just had one. What is, Bill, again for you? What is? Tell us about caramelized rye. I've never really seen that in anything.
it's toasted rye. Okay, so they call it caramel, means it's been put into the oven and cooked, and gets a coating on it. Toast it to based on the temperature. It brings out a little more of the sweetness in the rye grain than you otherwise would get. So we put 15% caramelized / toasted rye.
Very nice.
So,
It's sort of the same along the lines of like caramel malt, or right? I mean,
yeah,
like,
right. Caramel
There you
malt would be the same thing.
okay,
There you
cool.
go.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear it. Let's hear it for Bill, for Joe, for Wally, and for Dustin. Let's hear it. Great job tonight. Don't forget, there's 2 events with these. So we will be back on next week, same bat time, same bat channel. So don't forget, it's not necessarily, sometimes you go by the Eventbrite calendar. Again, we set this up where you buy 1 ticket, you get 2 events. It only will recognize this event tonight. We do have the event tomorrow. You will get the email that I normally send out, but just want to make sure you don't forget that.
Next week.
And then we do have the events, the 23rd and 24th of these that we've ever done. So we're closing out year number 2. Don't forget that all of our distilleries tonight are eligible to become all-stars. We'll have a vote for everyone who bought a ticket, can vote for their favorite distilleries, and we will award them all-star status. It's nothing they sign up for. So we could come to them and say, hey, you're an all-star. We'd like to bring you back for the special all-star event we do. And they could be like, I'm good. So, but we'll try. So don't forget, this will close out year 2, and that will be in the month of May. So that is out there now. You can sign up for that. So check out Eventbrite and look for the next Flagship Whiskey events. And I'll include a link to that. I always, of course, send you guys an email with the link to the video, because we do have people that can't show up, and we'll put that in there. With that, I will say goodbye. I do stick around and answer any questions or anything like that, but we'll say goodbye for now. Anybody who'd like to leave can. I'd like to say our guests, you certainly can go. If you want to stick around, you certainly can. We're not going to force to keep you around. We like to respect your time. I'll stick around and answer any questions you have. You want to talk whiskey, anything like that. So with that, I'll say goodbye and turn off the recorder. Thanks, everyone. Great job. Fun group tonight.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everybody.
Thank
Great.
you.
All right. Good night.
Thank you,
Good
guys.
job.
Thanks,